Oh, wait, hold on. Okay. Can't have any of that entertainment aspect of YouTube. Got to keep it dry, very dry, profitable. Uh, because that's obviously what's really going on with YouTube is they're making nothing but profits, nothing but tremendous profits. All their numbers are totally aces, clean and clear. So I started thinking about something that it comes up in my mind as this. It's so normal in my thoughts now because of how I've had to take what I really know. This fucking fly, one fly, somehow one fly has gotten in here. I have no idea where from or how. It's freezing. It's freaking freezing. But anyway, so you know how I don't like flies. I don't like critters. Racism and all of this. Just this is these are so many terms. There's terms that such as this weird misuse of gender that it's just bullshit. Then there's a term like racism that it's like, okay, that's unfortunately that is now more antiquated in a lot of where people are thinking of, like, when they think of racial discrimination, it then becomes this thing like, oh, okay, no, but I get what you mean. Like, we understand what you're talking about. But really, a lot of people aren't getting, why do the kids all sit together at lunch? Why do they divide at the lunch tables? And this really concerns the white liberals, and then very weird envy. And I really think it's a kind of weird that is something that is uniquely black weird that I'm not around. Like, I'm around a certain kind of over polite, awkward kind of white American liberals. So, and it's a part of their culture to be kind of gushingly nice in some ways. That's kind of wonderful. Like, because it just descends from certain Scandinavian groups and then certain kind of Yankee groups and such, and then you have them up against other types of white groups that are more likely to be in the smaller towns, farming, doing timber, cultivating timber. They're in work clothes all the time. They are the mossy oak whites, and you could identify once you know that who moved here, and you start identifying last names. Oh, this entire area, the streets are named after this group of people, and you start, oh, okay, and because there's then people like say the Mennonites. They're totally different. They're in no way, shape, or form rude, but they do not engage. They just are non-engaging people in any way. Unless you're around a Mennonite, you probably have never talked to one, but you've seen them. You see them around. I mean, you see them in town, but you probably never really talked to one of them unless you've gone out of your way to, because they're just not the kind of people who are going to just be hanging out, chatting you up and stuff. So these settlement groups are, these kind of people you could identify in places, and the Chinese kids went to Chinese school after American school. That was my upbringing. So kids who even went to Catholic school would go to Chinese school after Catholic school. And they were at Catholic school because it was a good school. They were just paying for education because they in their culture, there's nothing odd about paying for education. Like, that it never left. That idea was still normal, because it is. That is the norm of human society. It is unique to Yankee Puritans. the idea of a compulsory school system and compulsory education and literacy programs, because that is fundamentally a good done unto God. It brings glory to God. It's literally like what it would have been. That's where it all started, was that kind of idea. When people are talking about like racism, this, racism, that, they're not understanding the groups they're made up of. See, black people have now mixed a lot of their groups around. But there still are black people that they just, you can't, no, not just anybody can marry into that family. Not, they no. You know, what fraternity, what sorority are you part of? This is very quickly identified too. They know how to signal that they're at that level. They're at the LinkedIn level, as Kevin Samuel said. Breeding downward in no way helps, and they know the difference. They will know the difference. They do. They see it. They know it. They don't deal with it. And there's black Americans who, they encounter these people. They're related to them in some way. They know. And others, they are upper class people. These kind of people have existed since the colonial days. That there were these tiers. It just is. It just is like that. It doesn't matter how much people have forgotten. So a lot about with racism and this, that, and the other is, a big part of this is you are experiencing people that are clannish. They stick with their own. This is just simply something that a lot of people just can't accept. And yet, clannish, when you were talking about genetics and then how it shows up in behavior, this is a term that really comes up. That these are people who are kind of, they're kith and kin. So they're both kind of a cloud of friends and interrelations. And at some point, that the clan ends somewhere, and other ones begin within their own group that's identifiable from the outside. And it makes sense that we would assort mating in these types of kind of circles. You know, there would be these circles that go out from the center, and then there would be all these other ones that overlap within. You know, that so. But this was something that, especially when the alternative right popped up, and genomics and genetic studies and IQ and stuff like that were being discussed, warrior genes, like sort of like the genes that make somebody slow their heart rate when they're committing like violence, or they're in something. The testosterone and adrenaline pump through them, but their heart rate falls or stays stable. You just find that, and anybody who understands what that, knows that reference, they get it. They get what the deal is, because you find this among very violent killers a lot of times, and so athletes and violent killers, and so this idea that you would have people who they stay within their own, they feel comfortable within their own. They do not feel comfortable with people who are outside of their clan. So there's even people that they're friendly with who are not related. They are kith, but they're very friendly with. This person is in the clan, like, so their small group, their family, their nuclear family in some way, shape, or form is sort of aligned with these people who are all related to one another. You'll see this a lot in groups that emigrated here, and it will remain depending upon the strength of that society. But also it depends upon, can they go back to the home country and in some way identify in any way with it anymore. The more you can't identify with the home country of origin, the more that this either becomes its own thing locally, or it breaks down in some way and has to reform. it always has to reform. Everything has to adapt, but it has to now because there's no link to the old homeland. So we're seeing a vast change in a lot of the ways that clans of urban, suburban, and exurban groups, the way that they exist, how they are, their character, and then this is becoming more and more obvious that there are clans of Black Americans that are very hostile to any other clan of Black Americans in the locality. That's one that really, like, people have to start, if they think like this gives you power over it. This is no longer mysterious. So this is like the Hatfield McCoys. These are people fighting who they're not related. Some people kind of are related. They date each other. They dated this person's cousin, mama, sister, whatever, however it worked. Then there's just people who they just happen to be homies, and they're willing to kill other people who, and this is by all the crime data, and when people study crime, they know something about this person. They know something about them. That's how they've identified them as an enemy target. They know it's not just there could be just random, but it's no, that's such and such, or he's from, or he's wearing something that indicates he's from. Another sign, a clan sign. You're wearing your clan colors. People never get this idea. We still have to use the word colors, gang colors, but it's colors of a clan. We're just not thinking of it that way. And because if we were to put it in those terms, we would easily then equate it with the Greater Appalachia, the idea of Scots-Irish and Irish and which would very quickly be like, it would evoke all of this memory of it being seen as these barmy savages, these barmy sheep herders who were always fighting each other all the time, until they finally were able to we were all locked in here together after the revolution, and then they could go after the fucking pasty Yankees every so often, or they would get sent after the natives. It's like, get the recruit Greater Appalachia and send them at the Spanish, send them at Santa Ana. Get those boys together. Get them boys together. Oh no, those boys have something now. We'll get the bankers together. We gotta bankrupt these boys. We can't let these people rise up. Greater Appalachia, rise up. Woo, woo. One day I'm expecting, it's going to be Greater Appalachia, an engineer from Greater Appalachia, in a photo with Elon Musk, and what this guy makes is a car that can be fixed with one tool. Taken apart, reassembled, totally fixed with one tool. And it, like, you only have, and he has like the whole aftermarket. He's letting the aftermarket, no, go for it, go nuts, boys, make money. And it's going to be like, and the car will actually be made of metal again. And it will be a combustion motor, but it will be like some very acceptable kind of like alcohol, something biodiesel or something. That's what in my dreams, and I'm like, but that's the only people who could do that. It's the only people in the world who would think I can make a car. No, I'm telling you, I can make a car right now. I got a 3D printer. I can make a car. You can't make a car. I'll make a car right now. Watch. Give me a year. Trademark it. Woo-woo. See, this is my imitation of another group of clans, a cluster of clans. We would call them a race, as Greater Appalachia, maybe a nation. You see, as a West Coastie, I can identify that. I can identify that specifically, while people from Greater Appalachia can identify things. It's a West Coastie would do. Is it really that cold? You need Under Armour on? People aren't getting the import of racism, how important it is, really. That you understand that, no, there's kith and kin, and that therefore comes up with a clan. And the clan has to protect itself. It's a natural way you bind together. This is why the traditional Masonic Lodge was 40 members, 100 members was a very large lodge. Up until later times, and it went to such heights that it faded. To now, people desperately try to collect the stuff from the lodges so they just don't end up in landfills. The furnishings from the lodges, they don't end up in landfills. So this idea of you have a group that reaches a certain size, people want to know about 100 to 200 people. They can't really track any more than that. And this is why then you get the import of exogamous reproduction. So that of Yaakov, the reproductive model shown to us by the story of Jacob and Esau, and Yaakov, going to earn his bride by working for the other clan. So he has to serve the master of the clan to be rewarded a bride, and he was tricked, so he has to marry both brides, because both women are fundamentally going to be, at some point, they're nothing but a net cost for the father until he marries them off. And then he gains much, but then Yaakov, as he said, now I'm going to take them back to my clan. This was a problem. He was pursued because it's exogamous. You're not allowed to take the breeding. You're not allowed to take them out of that clan and bring them into your clan. But that was the whole idea. Yaakov, he cheats. He cheated. That's the whole idea. Is he's clever and he cheats, and he figures out ways to do things, and that's the key to that character. And how Esau wasn't like that. He was the representative of the hairy, red-headed people. So people have to make this relatable. That's why there's so many stories of brothers in the Hebrew, the Hebrew Bible, in the Torah, and other books, not just the Torah, but the other books, and that you have all these stories of brothers, and how they will come to represent that which can be truly observed from the outside. Even some people will be named things that if you understand the name of the person, that you understand this is something, that this is a quality that's associated with this person, and then they show a lineage of them as if this is a quality that carries on. Amerigo Vespucci, apparently this was from a lineage of people who were quite something of regard as far as being stinging or mean or biting, because they're named after Vespa, after a wasp. So people have these fascinating descriptive names, if you know what to look for. And even in what we know about in the not mansion, they're mansions, but there are these. I'm forgetting the term now for the kind of living that you would be around the castle grounds. Like what these people made up eventually becomes the kind of the castle, the local castle, and it's because they all ended up receiving land as long as they married on, and these people did something. They had some skill that was critical to the local area. It's just, I'm forgetting the term at the moment. Many different countries have this period of time where there's problems in some past areas of power, so a bunch of people end up around some landholder. That landholder slowly doles out pieces of land to families, and that ends up making them incredibly strong. And on top of it, it ends up changing the breeding patterns of hundreds and hundreds of people, and from there descend whole clans. As then people come and they're like, oh, there's a bunch of people who have all these varying skills, and they had those skills descend through their families, you know. Or I wonder if will you train my son to serve the carpenter? You know, he'll teach you the trade, you know, and he's agreed to let you, you know, do this, you know, and so now you owe loyalty to the carpenter. Or, you know, you're a poor bloke, you come into an area, they mine coal, you become one of the carbonari, one of the coal in the coal syndicate, and so there's all these. We even have the histories of this that we could reflect on. These are the ways that you pull people into your clan, sometimes by force. You see that a lot with Islam. But the idea in America, we like this idea of a person can work their way up to a certain level where they can become these people who then have a happy families and generations that then become successful because of the model of success of both that the mother had to bear being a mother and a wife, because that's fundamentally her career, and because that's what's required because of how difficult it is to properly raise generations of success. And then the father had to work extremely hard so that he could provide what it took. And that people will look back when they have a solid lineage. They'll have pictures of their ancestors up someplace. They'll have pictures of people because of the pride that they take in the family, and that it's a tradition. It's just normal. You'll see this in the Middle East to this day. Pictures going back generations, and generations. I've had people send me photos of people who, I mean, way back, you know, of their own families, and they're like, dude, this is a picture of my family, blah blah blah. Like looking, like, I mean, these were gritty people. You know, these were strong, gritty people from a time where you had to have grit and strength, and we've been made soft now by our own powers and what we've inherited, and we just aren't the same people we once were. The blood of our ancestors runs thin in our veins, and to paraphrase something I remember reading from Return of Kings or Alternative Right blogspot, this concerns, like, for people who think, oh, the white nationalist, racist, super Nazi, they're more worried, like, what if white people white people forget how to filter water? Like, what is the rest of the world going to do? Look at countries that are developed nations, and do you go there, get a glass of water? Choose a place in America, get a glass of water. You know, like, what do you want? Let's take a look at let's take a sampling around the world. You know, tasty water. You know, a tasty glass of water, a nice, safe, tasty drink. You know, where do you dare? So, and that alone, just that people do things differently in different places. It's like, people don't drink that. We drink bottled water here. well, you're not from here, are you? There's people who will tell me, yeah, that's, they name the country. You went there. People looked at you and said, don't drink that. Have a bottle of water. Like, really, a bottle of water? Yes. What, do you want to die? What do you, like, do you want to die? Why are you trying to drink our water? Anyway, thinking of racism as just, no, I rebuke you. It's just this kind of immature, but people are at a kind of immature place, and they need to really understand, no, you do need to know about the ethnic genetic history of people. It is important. This is why a stack of totally logical, when I associate people who want me to get the jab, what do I also associate them with? People who don't think there's a thing called race, and that they'll dance and dance and dance, and that they will never get down to, no, there are racial clusters, and we have even words for this. Or there's genetic clusters. We have words for how people cluster. That this exists in our language. Kith, kin, and clan. We even have words for these things. You know, near yonder far, you know. There's even something actually that's not incorrect. It's like yonder. There's like three, and we even use these words this day, but not as much. And or near, far, and yonder, maybe that's what it was. But there's another one I'm forgetting. That's actually what you're supposed to use. We have words like this. We just don't use words anymore because the root cultures are becoming just nothing. They're just becoming nothing. They're just becoming pop culture nothingness. Running thin in our veins. People want to be against racism for all most right reasons. There is a reason why we end up with the long history of the Jewish comedian poking fun at not just their own, but also then Gentiles and Gentile populations because of a feeling of slight discomfort. And that these are really the thoughts running through his mind about what he's seeing. And this was critical for the 70s, for the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that these kind of things were happening. Eddie Murphy performing for white crowds, Whoopi Goldberg for white crowds. If I remember right, Joy Behar, if I remember correctly, her area of jokes was how many black men she had been with. As I recall, that was a big anchor of the kind of jokes she would make. I think she's the one, because I can almost absolutely remember her from when she was younger. I saw them all. I mean, I saw so many of those people. And so this kind of discomfort among other groups that at some point you have to come clean about. Like Richard Pryor was somebody who very much was coming clean about, like, from my point of view, this is what I'm seeing of other blacks, and I'm seeing of white people, and this is what I see. And it's kind of funny, you know, and you have to make it funny to deal with the discomfort. And a lot of people, they just this is just really hard right now for a lot of young people, because I mean, Eddie Murphy would absolutely be canceled for almost every single, for was it Dane, for Raw. Then I thought what was the other one? There was Raw, and there was, but can't remember. You know, the one where he's in the red leather outfit. Oh, he would just that would be over. It would be over. And I mean, yeah, many comedians, like the entire history of the modern liberal would be erased if these people had to really comb through most of their comedians. Where these are people who, for only about 2 generations, had been in areas that were multiracial. So they were dealing with a very new kind of thing for even modern society. No society had gone through something like this yet. And then that people could communicate it in a way that was best done through humor, and then the sitcoms, and it was very, yeah, and Archie Bunker, All in the Family, and What's Happening, and all of those all had this part of it that it was what was real. What were these groups really like among their own? I think Taxi was one of the best ways of kind of talking about the varieties of working class children of immigrants or grandchildren thereof of immigrants from Europe, Italians, Irish, and especially Jews, and which was very important for all of this, for people to make these observations, to somehow dramatize life so that they could deal with it. People wanted to be able to kind of deal with life, that's why these kind of comedies, that some of the humor, I mean, you can't do that now. You're not allowed to really do that now. So, anger about race, and trying to gin up things that now the left is desperately trying to gin things up, where some lesbian firebombed a gay bar. She's wearing, obviously it's a woman wearing a MAGA hat. It's just, or it's a dude built like a woman, wearing a MAGA hat. Well, you're like, come on, are you kidding? Are you kidding? What? Really? Oh yeah, look at your athletic run. Look at you swing that bat. Oh my gosh. Look out for this character in the streets. So, all right, I've got some things to do because it's storming like Norman, I better get things done while the getting's good. So, don't embrace racism. Just really understand people and where they're from. Just try to understand where they're from. And that would mean looking into their history. And that's not what the left did. The right did that. The right confronted, who are we? And everybody had to do it one by one. Well, who am I actually? And there's no going back now, because the left doesn't know who they are, and they can't, so they can't